Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to this seminar series. This is seminar number 2. Last week, it's seminar number 1, which was about the fourth industrial revolution in higher education, the general issues, the challenges. And then today, we're delving into the new tools that we can use in higher education within the context of the fourth industrial revolution, within the context of what has been called the metaphors. So this is our second seminar. The last seminar in the series will be held next week on Monday, on the 20th of June, 2022. So without further ado, I want to hand you over to Professor Ade from the Johannesburg Business School, who is going to be presenting and taking us through this seminar number 2, the tools that we need to use in higher education if we're going to be effective within the context of the fourth industrial revolution. Remember, we said the tools must change, the content must change, the platforms must change. So today we're concentrating on the tools that we must embrace within the context of the fourth industrial revolution as we teach in higher education. Professor Ade, the moment is yours.
Thank you very much, Prof. Arthur. Thank you, colleagues. Special thanks to my panelists that made it here today, Prof. Maria, Dr. Bhaso, Dr. Odunayo, connecting from the UK, Professor Lungile. If you can switch on your camera and just say hello, and Dr. Kibbie Naidoo, the University of Johannesburg. Just wave. Can you just wave? Yeah. So it's impossible to talk about technology and be grumpy. So I assume you all are excited for this. Colleagues, please confirm that you can see my screen. If you can, we are ready to go.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Thanks, Prof. Maria. Thanks, colleagues. So the whole idea of today, and thanks to Prof. Otto for this initiative, and Prof. Charis Ali, she's not here, but she was also one of the organizers, and Anthony, Dr. Anthony, is to kind of bring every talk into like an actual substance, if I may say, which is like an actual piece of tool that we've created at the University of Johannesburg. And you can see, you can comment on it, and our audience can actually also interact with us based on these tools. Interact with us based on what we've missed, if possible. Interact with us based on what we are showing them and how useful it can be in their spaces. Or maybe possibilities for the futures as well. So we are very open to all of those conversations today. So I titled this Teaching Innovations. My colleagues here from the teaching, from the TPAC, like Prof. Maria and Dr. Kibbie Naidoo, probably have seen some of the things I'm displaying here today before now. As you know, UJ, we're second in Africa now. We've been busy with a lot of innovations as UJ. A couple of weeks ago, I'm sure you saw on social media where we were 3D printing some houses and stuff like that. So that's UJ, thanks to the leadership. UJ has been on that kind of trend. So colleagues, today I would start by introducing myself so that you can see the context. I would introduce some technologies that we've created in terms of pedagogy, like this model of teaching, technologies that back that up. I'll also talk about some technologies with regards to assessment. So because during COVID, this was such a big topic. How do we conduct assessments when we know that this boy doing computer science, his big brother is a software engineer and is writing his assessment from home? So there was so much temptation for students to cheat at that time. So we had to come up with a lot of technologies to assist in that space. Then I want to talk about decolonization, quite a very passionate topic in Africa because African indigenous knowledge, many scholars believe that it is being sidelined in the middle of development for Africans. We're going to talk about how the kind of technologies we've created, teaching innovations we've created in that space to assist, to bring technology back into, to bring African culture, everything, languages back into the middle of the discourse. I'm going to touch on that. Next, immersive environment. That's where I know Prof. Arthur likes the topic of metaverse and all of that. Prof, this is where you get to, you do enjoy this part. Serious games are games that are created to teach particular concepts. Educational games are kind of serious games in education. So here's where I'm going to show off a couple of tools that we've created in my space. Then we look at learning support tools, which are tools that either assist in teaching or in learning. So teaching is for the lecturer's part, learning is for the student. Then I will leave you with some thoughts that, because some of our colleagues, they always said, since we are not engineers, are we left out in these conversations? And I'm always a big fan of saying that, you know, innovation in my head, I don't think it all has to be technology. So I'll leave you with some thoughts to think, for you to say, you know what, if you're not in technology, there are things you can still do that could be very helpful for our students. So that said, introduction, I'm just quickly going to go through this. I think most of my audience know me, but I don't want to assume that I'm known that much. So I'm going to just say, my name is Abejide Ade-Ibijola. I'm a professor of AI and applications at the Johannesburg Business School. My background is computer science, bachelor's, honors, master's, PhD. I have about 14 years of experience in academia and the industry. Academia gives me it kind of pushes my mind to think further. The industry allows me to flex the muscle of those thoughts so I can create things that I think about. Research interest, I'm in AI and applications. I love to create algorithms across different spaces, and an aspect of computer science called formal languages and sometimes automata theory, which is like theoretical computer science. There are many models that are quite helpful in an aspect of AI that we call rule-based AI. I don't want to bore you with that detail. So the business school, I do supervision in AI and applications, digital transformation, because the industry, this is what the industry needs, and governments need this. The government is actually tired of academics coming and talking about theory. They want us to provide solutions. So we are in that space as the University of Johannesburg, and that's where we operate. Then teaching innovation is my passion. I've won several awards in teaching and innovation of teaching. Special thanks to my colleagues that have been supportive over the years in that space as well. I would like to think, I'm not keeping tally on these things, but then the last time I tried to count, it was over 100 of technological innovations that I've created in my career, and over 70% of them actually are in teaching. So this topic is my topic. I love this topic. When I'm at work, like many other colleagues of mine that are here, I do postgraduate supervision, competitions, which is where I now involve young people. We get out there, we look for something that can be won, and we go for it, we win it. Then we, like other academics, I do my research, of course, in AI applications and algorithms. Then in teaching and mentoring, this space, one of my passionate spaces as well. So here, beyond the curriculum, I teach stuff like character and try to get students in shape to learn and get their mindsets in the right places. So I call it grit and character mindset. So for the future, I have projects that are social projects in that space, because I don't think our students have ever been dumb. They've never been. Problem is when they show up, we just want to do business as usual. We are not thinking, what is the mindset of this person? Can we assist them to get them ready? So it's kind of like a readiness kind of space, and I enjoy doing that a lot. Then this is my social project here where I do tech entrepreneurship. Again, tech entrepreneurship is one of the things that brought me to a business school now, where my technological skills can actually find good use in society and not just remain a scientist in the laboratory. For society, we all know the issues of job creation in society. Universities, I was at the UJ Senate today, we're talking about funding. We need money, so all of those things are things that I engage myself with as well. And like other academics, I do external examination moderation and all of this nice stuff. And enough about me. So let's talk about the demonstrations that I have for you today. So for some of the things, I'll leave it on slides, just slides. Some of the other things I'll open it up for you on like the actual video game. I'll kind of play a few seconds in the game so that you can get the context. You can get the whole idea of what's going on. So the first aspect of tools, I call that category pedagogy and assessments. Like I said, okay, so this is about teaching and methods of teaching and styles of teaching. This is about assessment. So first, during COVID, we had to create certain things to make sure that the student writing is the actual one. This is one of the tools we created. We call it Python Lab. So in my space, I teach Python programming, and I needed to know that my students were the ones writing the labs. So we created this tool where the student can see the lab on this side, write a Python program to generate the following sequence. They go through, oh, okay, for 20 marks, okay, I'm ready to do that. And on the other side, they can then write the code. And when they write the code, they can submit, they can share their screen, they can run the program. But what we were able to achieve here was to track the students' computer at the back. So if they were to be Googling stuff at that time, we could actually see that they were Googling stuff. And we could shut down their browsers, we could do all sort of things on their machines. And it was quite interesting because we were able to use it in 2020, not for so long, because now in 2022, we're kind of back to face-to-face again. Speaking about proctoring systems, which is like the first one I showed you now, we were also able to create a tool that can take pictures of students when they were writing assessments. And when those pictures were taken, we analyzed if there was only one person in the picture or two people. Also, we were able to analyze if the student's eye was going around too much. So typically, if there are two devices, this is what students do. They keep an eye on the first device, they're writing an assessment, they open a laptop or a cell phone, and they're looking at that one at the same time. So all of this analytics, we're able to use some AI to pick it up. It's called CNN, Convolutional Neural Networks, but I'm not gonna bore you with the details. But we used some AI to pick it up and we generated a log. And that log file could tell you if a student was cheating, or could suggest to the lecturer to say, this particular student, when they were writing, their body language was all over the place. Do you want to check it out? And we generate a log for you. So it was one thing. And this was done by myself. This is my master's honor student at the time that was involved in this, and a colleague of mine, Sia Bonga, that was part of it as well. So we have a research at school that is in progress on this stuff. This is another teaching innovation. This innovation was something we created to address the problem of students studying very late to exams, and when there are many videos. So many videos the lecturer has released, the student needs to study, and the student just has a particular question, but let's say there are 10 videos. All of the 10 videos are 10 minutes long, which is 100 minutes. So the student now needs to go through each of them. But now with this technology, the student can just type a query, a question in a static video. So it's like dynamic questioning of a static material. So the material itself is static, we can type a question and then we transcribe the video to text. Then we try to look in the text using natural language processing. Where was the lecturer talking about your question? Then we suggest to you, I think we should start from 3rd minute, 10th second, or you should check from 20th minute forward. That's where you might find your question. So this was also like a project of my honor student that year, and one of my colleagues, Professor Osana Tunomoriti. We both were co-supervising the students at the time. And Prof. Charis Ali sponsored this project forward. So this project is kind of like at a more advanced stage at this moment. Also, we have a research paper that we're busy with on this project. Next, I'm going to tell you about problem generation. So one of the things you want to do in teaching is to be able to give your students many problems to fiddle with, to practice, so that first you relieve their nerves. So students don't like the whole idea of, I'm going to see a problem I've never seen before. It even spooks them, it scares them. So if they were to see many samples of your problem, that is not your problem, of course, your problem is classified. But if they were to see many problems of similar complexities over a few weeks before the exam, and they see the exam problem after that, they are more relaxed, and yet they are also performing better because they can practice. So regular expressions is a topic in computer science, and this was a project about generating problems in regular expressions and solutions. So it's a project from 2019, and we have a tool that generates problems and solutions for this particular topic. This is similar to that. This is also problem generation. I teach computer programming, so here I was able to generate many problems that are computer programs. So it's like an AI that is writing code, and the code can be given to students to practice with before the exam kicks in. And because the machine is generating it, the machine can generate 100,000 of these things in the next 2 minutes. So it also speaks to the idea of having students, having a lecturer set unique questions for every student, which is a possibility we've actually explored. how can we set unique problems for every student and automatically grade them? Those are things that we've actually explored as well. Here, we're driven by the whole idea of like generation AMA 2000, like we like to call them in South Africa, AMA 2000s. The 2000s are always on Twitter and Instagram. They don't have time to open Duolingo, Blackboard. This looks boring, right? So what we did here was to create problems and push them to Twitter. So imagine that there was this tool we created that would take the class list and everything and Twitter handles of students and just create a problem called the Deaf Instructor. This is an actual screenshot from Twitter, from our tool. So to pick, create a problem like this one, then automatically tag all the students in the classroom in that problem. So it's almost like we're going to social media to get them where they are because we know that's where the students are. That's where they're chilling. So for this tool, then after a while, then we release the solution as well. The interesting part of this piece of technology is that we don't have to even do anything. The moment we push the button, problems are generated every 6 hours. If we put the intervals to be 6 hours, the students are also getting on there 1 hour after seeing the solution. And if the student is trying to get away from work, then in their face on social media, we are actually posting stuff there to say, no, you cannot get away. Decolonization. Before I begin decolonization, I'll just show you a tool that we have here. Let me just drag it down here. It's been my first decolonization tool to show you. Please confirm that you can see the screen I just dragged in because I'm going to drag it back out. Dr. Odun, can you see it? Just nod if you can.
We can see.
Yes.
Good, fantastic. So what we did here was to allow native. So in South Africa, the highest spoken language in South Africa is Zulu. This is Zulu. So what we did here with one of my master's students is to create an interface for students to write code in a South African language. And as far as we can tell for now, this is the first attempt to allow Africans to write code in an indigenous language for the first time. 54 countries, we've not seen anything like it. We've actually searched very hard. So on this project, my student, Mandla Chezi, he's doing master's with me now. So this is his master's project. What we did here was that you can write a piece of code in isiZulu. You can compile it. What can this do for us? It can allow people that don't even know much of English, people that have never been to varsity, to now get their hands dirty with coding. They can actually go on and code. And you can run the code, so all of the options are there. Plus, it also allows you to see translation. So you can write stuff in English and then go back to isiZulu and then see the Zulu version. So it's live, the tool is live right now. So I'm going to just see if I can put the link in the chat window as well for colleagues that might want to fiddle with it. Maybe during question and answers, I'll find time to do that. All right, so that's the first one towards decolonization. So I know decolonization as a topic gets very sensitive, people are passionate about it. Other people are thinking, what does it mean? Does it mean that we're gonna turn chemical compounds back into Tswana language and all of that? So it gets political as well at some point. But on our side, it's not. We're just technological experts that want to just make sure that if a Black African person is struggling to understand some content, what if they can see an explanation of the same content in their native language? Would that really go a long way to help them? So that's the whole idea of decolonization on our side. And then one of the projects we have on that space from 2020 as well is this one, where we create an animation of a person and make them speak another language that they don't speak in real life. So here, Professor Chiliti Marwala was actually speaking Afrikaans. And Professor Daniel Vanil, the dean of the CD, the current dean of the CD, was speaking isiZulu. And in real life, he doesn't speak Zulu. So it's also to say to you, these are not political topics too. On our own plate, they are just topics about diversity and about inclusion, about all of those other nice topics. So for this in teaching and learning, in my modules that year, I used it to introduce students to the module. And I used this across several languages. I think there was Tswana, there was Pedi, there was Chivenda, and there was isiZulu. And in all of those languages, I don't speak those languages in real life, but then I was speaking those languages in this animation. So you would hear me actually say, welcome to the module, whatever. So if you're a student in my class that year, you remember that You go there, you click, you watch a welcome video of me to the module, but that video was recorded in your native language, and students found it very, very fascinating. So it was quite interesting. So colleagues, I'm going to go and I'm wrapping up now so that we can have interactions. I'm going to go into immersive environment, serious and educational games, which are games created to teach particular concept or place a particular person in a virtual environment where otherwise, where they can have a lot of fun and interact. First, I'll start from Prof. Maria's department of portfolio. Prof. Maria is the executive director of the UJ Library. So we collaborated with UJ Library through Prof. Maria about a year ago, 2 years ago now, to create this game called Plaguey Warfare. So in this game, students actually get into a virtual environment and they learn what is right and wrong about plagiarism. What does plagiarism mean? But they're not reading text, so it's not like a quiz. It's actually like a mission. You get a mission, and we know the digital natives love video games, so they get in there, they get a mission. In some realm, they are solving problems as detectives. In other realms, they are like, in quotes, like criminals in the game, because that's what people like to play bad guy, you know what I'm saying? So it's like a video game thing. So the game is called Plaguey Warfare. It's live now. So I'm going to run it by the side while I explain to you what the game does. In the game, we rendered 3 UJ libraries in the game, and we rendered it to precision. So the APB library, the APK library, and the Dumfontein library. So I'm just going to demo the game real quick. So in this game, you log in as a student and you decide if you want to be a mafia or you want to be a detective. All right. As a mafia, you're the bad guy, so you plagiarize for money in the game. But you still learn that what you're doing is wrong because the storyline of the game tells you where the borderline is, what you copy, if it's right or wrong. Then as a detective, you then try to figure out what plagiarism is and put people into rooms for interrogation. It's like a detective storyline. It's quite interesting stuff. So I'm just gonna pick one of the modes of play. So here, my profile that I logged in with, I have 0 rands of net worth. So here's where you accrue money. So the motivation why you play is virtual money. So you make money in the game, and you can go back to the storyline and read about what you are supposed to be doing. You could check how to play. You can check the leaderboard, which is yourself against every other student on the campus, how they're doing. And when you say play game, you're spawned in a gaming environment that is exactly the University of Johannesburg's library, depending on which game level you are in. So this is the APB library. As you can see, the UJ banner is there. There's a cop walking around. So, and there's this gentleman here on his keyboard there doing some work. Then we also rendered some U-Link kind of real life stuff on the screen. As you can see, it looks like the screen is live. This set of couches are also in the library in this position. The bookshelves right now, maybe some books might have moved, but then when we mapped it out, it was similar to what you have here. And still on the screen, we make some random screen appear on the, let me come back a little bit. Oof, yeah, I just got caught, try again. So the whole level of this game, the idea is to move around this library, find a book and do some transactions without the cops catching me. So I'm gonna run through here. Okay, there's a cop patrolling there. So oof, yeah, it just got me again. Okay, but then the whole idea is that, but I just wanna show okay, let me go through here. All right. Okay, this gentleman, let me go this way. Okay, you jump. Great. Okay, so I'm here. The bookshelves are here. So if you're in the audience and you've been to this library before, you probably recognize one or two things. So there's that gentleman coming there. Let me run and enter into one of the rooms. I can click the door of this room, get inside quickly. This was one of the rooms that Prof. Maria allowed us to use as a lab one of these days. So yeah, so it's very immersive. It is interactive, and we have published a research article on this game, myself, Prof. Maria, and other colleagues involved. And yeah, that's Plague Warfare, right? So another game that's similar to this is Josie Gamble, but I'm not going to go into Josie Gamble. I'll just exit this game and continue my presentation. All right, so that's Plague Warfare in a nutshell. And Deaf Game is another video game that we created that puts the students in an environment where they go into classrooms in the environment. All right, I'm time conscious now. All right. So learning support, I'm just going to go into learning support. Learning support, we have many technologies as well. So here we don't want students to be stuck in groups for every week. So there is a student of mine that had about a year ago. Her name is Mpo Seforo. So with Mpo, we're able to create an algorithm that shuffles students randomly every week. So it just puts them in different groups, and that maximizes student experience, because if you're in a group with one tutor and you don't like that tutor for whatever reason, we don't want you to be stuck for the whole semester. So this was one shuffling algorithm. Here's a project that we worked on with Professor Mario's Weight. And it's a mobile app that allows you to, as a student, to participate in selling. So Professor Weight is a professor in the Department of Marketing Management, and their students actually take on modules that test their skills in selling and sales management. So what we do in this app is the students can get in here. You can send announcements to them. They can collaborate with the industry and all of that. And this app was a VC Award winner app at 500,000 rands that year 2019. Here is a technology. This piece of technology allows you to predict if a student is going to fail, so that you can intervene quite early. So this one is also on the internet. It's launched already. So here you put a few marks in the semester, then based on machine learning algorithms, based on many other marks we've seen in the past, we can tell if you are at risk or not, and we can send you more tutoring time or something like that. So this is with one of my students from the year 2021, Safwan Patel. Python bot. So Python programming is a programming language. This chatbot teaches you how to code. It's a good support. So when his lecturer is not available, you could ask questions. When is the meeting time? You can ask administrative questions like, when is my lecturer available for meeting? You can also ask questions like, give me a practice problem. Or you can ask questions like, what is the solution to this problem? All of that was possible. Personality shuffle. This was an interesting one. So we thought about having students in same groups that have different personality traits that clashes too much. So we did some study in the theory of psychology, where we looked at different personality type, openness, extraversion, whatever. And we kind of look at guys that can be leaders and guys that cannot be leaders, guys that are aggressive. You don't want too many aggressive people in the same group. So we worked on an algorithm that then looks at bringing them together in a way that is like blended. There's only one leader in the group at a time, and it works. Also, Proofreader is another one. Here it's a tool for postgraduate supervision. So if you have postgraduate students and you're thinking, how do I read all of their proposals? Maybe you have 10 of them. So you could put it into this tool, and this tool can go over the proposals and generate feedback for the students. And this was also a project, a PhD project of one of my students, Paul Iwashoku. So colleagues, I'm almost there. I'm almost done. There's so much I could show you, but then I think this should be enough to get the conversation going. Zero technology innovations is something I brought in here because of our colleagues that might not be creating tools, but might be thinking about what else can I do to make my teaching a lot more fun. So I call something no technologies at all, which is when you just go and you buy props with your research funds, 3D models of chemical company, you're teaching chemistry, just want to show students something very fun, maps, things like color coding. When you have your marks, you can show that the red zone, you can put like red there so that students can be like, oh, I'm going to die soon, so they can take it seriously. trusted delegation in terms of feedback to students, because students get upset when they are being ignored. So if you send emails to students and you're not responding in 24 to 48 hours, they get upset. So you might want to think of trusted delegation. There are clear communications. You don't change things like dates for tests and assessments, because except the fate of the world depends on it, because students get obsessed with those things. And those things, you just need to be willing to do them. You don't have to do much. Low fruits, things like Google Forms, you can use them in your teaching and learning. Can create I personally have an Instagram account with my students where we go there, we just have fun. It's called Kingsman Academic Official. So you can create things like that and just meet them halfway, because they are from this generation. Most times our academics are from the other generation. You know what I mean? Small hours, you can look at more things like buying tools off the shelf. There are many virtual reality experiences that are free. Some of them you can buy them for about $60 online, and you can buy holograms and devices and just use it to demonstrate what you mean in your classrooms. Then you could then do more stuff like I just showed you, things like video games and generation of comments. These are all the things that we've done in my space. And we are now on the discussion level. So thank you, colleagues, for listening. So now I'm going to bring in our panel members. I'm going to bring in Dr. Kibbie Naidoo, Dr. Bhaso, Prof. Maria, Dr. Odunayo from the UK, and Professor Lungile and Ntsalaze. So I will start with Dr. Kibbie Naidoo. So Dr. Kibbie Naidoo, your comments are welcome, questions are welcome, ideas are welcome. What do you say about this aspect?
Thank you. Thanks. I mean, this is really exciting, and everything that you've shown us, we can comment on this. I want to just say, wow, there's a lot that's really innovative, that's exciting. But I want to start with the points that you've got highlighted at the end, and that is heart and passion, which you didn't talk about. But key for me, the fundamental issue about good teaching is that the teacher needs to have heart and passion. And I think that is the basis of all good teaching. And when that happens, so many other things fall into place. The one is, why do games work? Why is this exciting? It's not because of the technology. The technology in and of itself is not going to work. But what makes it work is the fact that it engages students, it excites students, right? It really makes them excited, but it shows the student when a lecturer, when a group of people get together to engage with the technology, to be innovative, it also shows the student that, hey, my lecturer is quite cool, or my lecturer is showing an interest in who I am. So good teaching starts with also knowing who our students are and how they are able to engage with this. You know, so it's about saying, these are our students, they're technologically savvy, they want to be excited and they want to innovate and they want to be part of this, they want to be taken on this journey, and it's an exciting journey to be part of. So as a lecturer, then the other principle that you really are engaging with is you're beginning to know who your students are, and you're beginning to see them and you're beginning to engage them. And seeing the student and understanding fundamentally who the student is what's demonstrated in so many of the games and so many of the things that you've shown us today. So the one for me, so you know, you may think, oh, well, you know, so what? We're using isiZulu or we're talking to, but you're actually not just doing that. What you're doing when you're engaging in that is you're actually showing students, I see you, I'm acknowledging that you're bringing a skill set into the learning process, and I'm using that to make sure that you are able to learn. So again, you know, so there's so many exciting, and as you know, as somebody that works in teaching and learning, there's so much that's demonstrated through what we have here. And I think that what I really want to see is just understanding who our students are, understanding and engaging with them in ways that's what's exciting. Of course, you do want to caution, and you do want to say, well, you know, it doesn't always work, and you need to be, as a good teacher and an innovative teacher, you have to be willing to take risks. And I think that's what this is about as well. So sometimes it's not going to, it may not work out the way in which you want it to work out, or some students may not be part of the journey. And I think having that awareness and having that understanding of not everybody is as tech savvy as everybody else. So an awareness of who are we leaving behind in that process, But I think for me, and I'm going to stop here because I'm going to give the others a chance, but I'd really like to, I could really go on. But for me, the games and the technology really does work because it speaks to the fundamental principles about good teaching and learning. And that's what works. So, and you may ask, okay, why is it that when you introduce games, students are excited and they learn and it fosters deep and engaged learning, and others may try it and it doesn't. And I think that again, the tool itself doesn't necessarily lead to good teaching and learning. It's about having it all together, understanding the tool and how the tool is going to help students engage deeply with the conceptual knowledge that we're trying to develop as well. So the tool and the gimmick in and of itself is not going to work. So it's understanding that, and understanding being knowledgeable in your subject area is also crucial. So to foster the deep learning. But yeah, I'm going to stop there and I'm going to let others talk, but I've got so much more that I want to say and I'll come in later on. But that's really, really innovative. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kibbie. Just the way I remember you, because Kibbie, you are the one who keeps us on check, because sometimes we just create things that might not be useful, So as computer scientists, we can get carried away because it's fun to create these things. But thank you very much, Kibbie. And also, I'm privileged to sit on TPAC. So there's so much insight I get from you and our colleagues on what teaching should be and those things. And the things that are notable from what you've said is understanding the students. Kibbie, you mentioned that. You also said the lecturer must be willing to take risks and be ready for this. This might not even work. So I think for me, I can relate to that. The many things I've tried that doesn't work. There was a semester I tried during COVID for students to collaborate by ranking each other's participation. It was such a flop because they were malicious with their ranking. So on a peer-to-peer, one student ranked the other one 5 out of 5, then the other one ranked him 1 out of 5. Apparently the guy who was ranked 1 out of 5 was actually the one who did all of the work. And he decided to rank the other gentleman 5 out of 5. So I kind of understand what you mean by that. And you said that the tool itself, even if it doesn't work, the lecturer itself needs to be familiar with the topic and kind of be able to know deeply what they are teaching. Thank you very much, Kibbie, for those thoughts. I want to go to Dr. Bhaso now. Dr. Bhaso?
Sure. Thank you very much, Prof. Ade-Ibijola, or Prof. Jide, as we commonly refer you to as. And I want to thank the Institute for the Future of Knowledge, as led by Professor Mutambara, and this wonderful series as put together and coordinated by our good friend, Dr. Anthony Kazboni. And I want to greet our fellow panelists here this evening, afternoon, evening now, and our friend, particularly our guest, Dr. Odunayo. So thank you, Prof. Jide, not only for the presentation, but from my side, the invitation, and I use invitation here loosely, not only to be a part of today, but I think an invitation to collaborate between our respective entities and between among our students as we prepare them for the changing world of work, but also for some real changes in teaching and learning. At the Department of Politics and International Relations, we have now a 4IR in Digital Policy Research Unit that seeks to cultivate a preparedness for the changing world of work, but also to and changing world of politics and policy making, but also to bring an awareness, a technical awareness among these emerging political scientists of the goings on in the creation of technologies. And we also have an annual coding bootcamp where we introduce our students to the technical side, to write lines of code and to submit their work through coding interfaces. And we also have a new digital policy studies journal that is published by the UJ Press to serve as a hub for debates and for best practices sharing. An excellent example of which is I think what we are seeing here of best practices across our disciplines. There are, I think, some commonalities and overlaps because we are working at the end of the day with young minds, and we seek to transfer knowledge and passion for our disciplines. So we were asked, I know, to maybe single out one of the applications and what we think they could be applied to in our respective domains. But I think that's really quite an unfair imposition because, as someone has said, there's a tsunami of ideas in such a way that it will be very difficult for me to restrict myself to just one. But let me just first of all tip my metaphorical hat for the Zulu Python. This is really quite a game changer in the creation and the development of software. Well done to you and your student. And I think it literally just crumbles so many barriers to entry in the world of app and general software development. The other thing that the other sort of exhibition that you shared with us was around gamification. We've had many discussions over this. In fact, my students, my second year class, wrote an article together with myself on gamification of conflicts, because that is what we teach in that particular module. And I like the idea of immersive learning. That's one of the items that we tangle with. What are the ethics of gamifying conflicts? And one of the things we find is that it would be, again, quite a game changer to be able to immerse the students in world wars sort of decision making, deciding from the cockpit, if you will, as a commander-in-chief of an armed force and as the leader of a country, but also being aware of the human side of things. That these are not just conflicts that emerged out of nowhere. These are not just statistics. These are human beings. So I think that immersive element carries a lot of gain, and I know we are collaborating on this. The other sort of item for me which stood out is the posing of questions to static videos. We in political science, and I think this is true across all social sciences, do a lot of interviews. I've not met any single person who's gotten their doctorate, at least in political science and the other social science disciplines, without having conducted interviews. So I think here there's a lot that can be tussled with, the ethical processes of conducting interviews, but also I think technically the idea of sort of interviewing people and then having that corpus, that data in a accessible video way, instead of going through the entire transcript, you can now just go to, you can sort of re-ask, repose some questions and have a sort of direct access to the answers that were presented. And I have to say, interview skills are some of those skills that people acquire quite late. It's something that I've not seen being taught in undergrad and even in early postgrad, which is to say honors. So it's sort of something that you impart on your students as you supervise them. And yet it is one of the most important and one of the most sensitive from an ethical perspective skills that and processes that we participate in doing our research. And then let me look at the personality groupings. as an amateur psychologist myself, I do have a BA in psychology, which I've never put to any use though. I am quite fascinated by the idea of pairing people according to their personality types. I am one of those who thinks that people cannot necessarily be changed, but can be bended. So when you say, for example, that you locate according to you locate a leader per group, but I think we can also do it the other way and see how we can cultivate good leadership skills from those who don't necessarily have those skills, according to the various personality types that we work with, because I think the world that we are leading into requires precisely this flexibility and malleability and adjusting to the context. So I think that is quite an important innovation that we could even push further. And then to sort of end off, I know the sub-theme of these proceedings is emerging fears. And I thought about the proctoring with random photography. Are there perhaps any Poppy Act considerations, conundrums that you've had to deal with the development of the Zulu Python? Are there any ideas of wider community participation and inclusion? I think I like the idea of decolonization beyond the sort of ivory towers, and because these are languages that are owned, that are have an important intimate relationship with those who are part of those cultures. So what maybe is some thinking around taking these and having inclusion beyond our campuses. And then if you could also just reflect on some challenges, and I know you've touched on some of these in terms of imperfect tools that didn't quite pan out with the way you had imagined. I see a bit of game theory developed there, where people were sort of like prisoner's dilemma. I think people threw each other under the bus and gave each other 1 out of 5, whereas the other student gave 5 out of 5. So I think that's just a snippet. But beyond this, what are some of the challenges you've encountered? I know Thomas Edison says that success is what 1% imagination and 99% perspiration, or something of that nature. So thank you very much, Prof. Jida and colleagues. I will stop there for now.
You yield the mic. Thank you very much, Dr. Bhaso, HOD Politics, University of Johannesburg. Thanks, Dr. Bhaso. I think if I can recap the things you've said, first you start with the great work you're doing in your department. Trust me, for some people it's news. For me, I've been following you for a while. We've been talking about it. You've been to my lab to see my stuff. It's the first time I'm seeing anybody in politics trying to code. So that is like also groundbreaking stuff. So you picked your favorite, Zulu Python. You picked static videos. Zulu Python is not a surprise. It's sentiment plus interest. You picked personality shuffle, and you also picked out some concerns that could come out of it, like I suspected. You wondered about the ethics around random photography. Trust me, the answer to that, I think it's very simple. The moment somebody comes to UJ or to your university and allows you to store their birth name and date of birth, middle name, and they took pictures at protection service and we give them a staff card, I think for the time being, they are ours. We kind of like, yeah, I mean, even the exams you write, we can take photographs, I think. But then I hear you, it would be nice to have like a consent form, and Prof. Maria can help me here as well when she responds, because she is more of an ethics person than I am. But I try, Facebook doesn't ask you for ethics before they get all your data and do what they want to do with it, because you sign it off very early. On our side, on random photography, we just have a page that says, do you know that we are taking pictures of videos of you? Do you agree? I agree. If you don't agree, you don't get to go on. But then getting a proper ethics clearance for that thing to go to market, I think it would be very important based on what you said. And you mentioned other challenges, and we'll recap because questions are popping, and I think time is winding down as well. So I'm going to go to Prof. Maria from Hub. Prof, you're one of the sponsors of one of the tools I displayed today, which is the game that everybody saw, which is Plague Warfare. I've been working with Prof. Maria for close to 5 years now. We have myself and Prof. Maria have an MOU. Prof, thank you for supporting our students throughout all these years. Thank you for your innovative mind. Please, Prof, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. I am just going to quickly talk about the photos. So just an update that we have kind of come across in the library. And for us, it was come across in a kind of negative way. But apparently all the photos that we have on Instagram, all the photos that we have on any of our social media, we need to have consent forms from the students, according to the latest POPIA Act. So just a little note to flag up. I want to talk about two different aspects around everything that Prof. Jide has talked about. The first one, I want to talk about this idea of OIR, digital transformation, etc., and the idea of fear. We tend to talk about this a lot from the perspective of lecturers, but working in the library where we work with the cross range of all our students, one of the things that has been very interesting to note is that not all our students are equally technologically savvy. So one of the key reasons that we have been working so much with Prof. Jide is because in the library, we've got a philosophy that one of our key strategic goals is actually to help students become as digitally and computer literate and savvy as possible. So one of the reasons for our digital literacies game, which we are busy developing, and the Plague Warfare game, is really to encourage those students that are nervous and fearful of technology to get into these games. It's the same reason that we've got a libraries app on which you can take out a book, pay your fines, etc., because it's a way to introduce students in a safe environment to technologies. So one of the things that I think is really exciting about all these innovations in teaching and learning is that in a safe environment, students get to engage with the cutting edge of technology. And that's really important because technology is constantly changing and they need to overcome fears that they have around technology. And we are surprised in the library by how many students actually have fears around technology. So I think all of these different innovations are really important from the perspective of the student's whole development as a person, from the development of our students who come from rural areas where there isn't a computer for each person in the household. Often there isn't even a computer in the household, and often there isn't even a smartphone in the household, to the environments that they engage with at the university. The second thing that I think is really important, and Prof. Jide and I have talked about this, and in many ways, Dr. Bhaso, you were starting to touch on this, is who designs the technology that we consume. And for me, this is one of the key reasons that we've been working with Prof. Jide. So this Plague Warfare game, and then we've got another one on digital literacies. Dr. Bhaso, I think we need to come and chat to you guys because a lot of the digital literacies game is around conflict resolution. So the game takes you through 4 different stages actually of conflict around a warfare, around something to do with a virus, etc. And what is fake news, bad news, all those kinds of misinformations, and what is the truth. And the idea is for students to be able to work this out. Now, a key reason why we're doing this touches on Prof. Jide's really important point about decolonization. Because when we look at it, most of the apps, etc., that we consume are designed by white young men in Silicon Valley. Most of us in South Africa are not white young men, and we definitely don't live in America. We've got very different kinds of issues that we are dealing with. And one of the important things is to bring a better understanding of society into the kinds of apps that we make, and a better understanding of the different peoples that we are in the world with our different types of concerns, and how do we bring that into the apps that we make, and to help our students have an awareness of these different kinds of things. So I think that from the University of Johannesburg, and particularly from Prof. Jide and the work that he is doing, the digital transformation in a decolonized environment is one of the most exciting things that we bring to the global conversation around teaching, learning, digital transformation, and knowledge production and knowledge consumption. I'm going to leave my comments at that, and really keen to continue the conversation.
Thank you very much, Prof. Maria. Very insightful. And yes, you and I have been talking about this topic for so long, as long as I can remember myself being at UJ. The things you touched on were things like digital literacy. And Prof, remember that we even had to do a survey to ask the students, and some of them come in not knowing how to use even a simple device. You're right about that. Fears on the part of the students to get involved. Your comments around that is well noted, Prof. Thank you very much for those insights. I think for me, I'm not surprised because I already know you and I talk about those things a lot. I'm going to go now to Dr. Ade-Ibijola from Coventry University in the UK. She's connecting with us there. She's an assistant professor there. Dr. Odu, in your teaching of accounting, she's a South African chartered accountant, and all of these things, and with the technologies you've seen, what are your inputs on this topic?
Thank you so much, Prof, for having me here this evening. And I want to also say thank you to all the panelists. I've actually gained a lot. And all the attendees, I'm glad to be here this evening. With all this exciting presentation, I'm really impressed that all these things are happening from let me say now from Africa, where I belong to, because it's actually innovative for me to see Zulu Python. So for me to be able to, for being able to code in an indigenous language means, even if I don't speak Zulu, there will be a time it will come to my indigenous language. And I want us to know that there is nothing as easy as being able to learn using our indigenous language. So that's actually innovative for me. And that stood out for me. It's actually impressive. And I know that those students will enjoy it and they will want to do more because it's what they are really familiar with. And the other one is this pledgy warfare. It solves the major issue we face as postgraduate supervisors. It solves the major problem we face with the students because plagiarism will be minimized, and the ability to be able to write original research makes your research to be impactful and innovative. And being innovative in our teaching, we are not just being innovative, we are teaching the students also to be innovative in what they do. And I'm very impressed that everything Professor Abejide was talking about as involvement of his students. It shows that the students were involved, the students were, they had input in all these technologies being introduced, and which is very impressive. And there was one prof maybe didn't talk about because of time, is predicting students at risk. And that actually stood out for me because the essence of teaching is not to see our students fail, is to see to impart knowledge and to bring out the best from these students. The greatest joy I have is to see my previous students in future, meeting them now, the previous students, seeing them in everything they do and they're successful. So that's what gives me joy. So if we have a software that can reduce, that can indicate early enough the at-risk students, it will reduce the dropout rate and increase the success of the university. That means we'll be able to trace the engagement of the students. We'll be able to know if students are really following. It's not possible to have all the students operating at the same level. There are some matric students, definitely we will have them in our classes. But if there are software that can sort these students out, it's to the benefit of the students and it's to the benefit of the university. And I would say it's to the fulfillment of the lecturer, because it's our joy to see that all our students are doing well. So, Prof. Abejide, I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing from University of Johannesburg. And I want you to know that University of Johannesburg is taking the lead way in all this, because I didn't know that this exists. It's actually the first time I will see this indigenous coding and all that. And it's quite worth celebrating. So I'll say congratulations and well done to everybody in your team at University of Johannesburg. We are proud of you. We are proud of what you are doing, and we would love to see more of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Odunayo Olarewaju. I really do appreciate those comments and remarks of yours. Yes, UJ, I'm sure you've heard now we are #2 in Africa. So it's because of the effort of colleagues as well, and the collaborations with your likes where you are as well, the support you give us in terms of collaboration. If I can sum up your contributions, you picked Zulu Python because you first you went out to say I can relate, because as an African I want something like this for a future where we could write something in indigenous languages. And you're not just, that's not just sentiments, because in Germany, Germans do it. In China, Chinese do it. In France, you write stuff in French, emails and everything in French. So if Africans can look at local languages, it helps to avoid extinction of those languages. That's one. And two, it comes closer to the native tongue. And the child who is trying to figure out what the long Skraminuskoskis mean in English, can understand it better in their native terms, the native languages. So I picked that up. Then you mentioned plague warfare, and you indicated the role it has on postgraduate supervision. Then you went on to also say that because what we do is that we don't want students to fail first, we want to be able to help them, and then N's prediction was good. So your comments are well received. Thank you very much for your insight, Dr. Olarewaju. I'm sure we'll do many things. And also thank you, recently you accepted to be a collaborator in our research group at the Johannesburg Business School. So I look forward to a future with a lot of relationship with yourself at Coventry University and the University of Johannesburg here in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Professor Lungile Ntsalaze. Prof?
Thank you, Professor Jide. I want to thank you for this. Thanks to Professor Mutambara for opening this platform for us. Dr. Anthony for organizing us together and making sure that things are working very well in organizing these events. To my fellow panelists, I greet you once more and greet everyone who has joined in the platform and is interacting with us. I think one thing that has become clear for me as you were doing the demonstrations, Prof, is that there's been a lot of talk about 4IR, but once the talk is done, we need someone to do the work. And I would like to commend you for making sure that the talk is being translated into reality, because for many, especially in our nation, 4IR is just an abstract concept that people cannot imagine the practical solutions that it brings. I would like to touch on two things which stood out for me, or maybe close to my heart. The first one is the proctoring software that you have developed. It's important for me because
Prof, did you decide to surprise me? Because I was waiting for Zulu Python.
No, I'm coming, Prof. So it draws my attention because as we now know that COVID has driven many higher education institutions to online modes that includes assessment. But in an environment where you're conducting assessments virtually, the most important thing is to preserve the integrity of the assessment, because once that is compromised, you produce graduates that are not fit, or they don't carry the skill that is claimed on their academic records. And in our country, we know already that unemployment is a serious issue. Recently, we see that even the graduate unemployment, which has been kind of low, is picking up, which is a serious challenge. So once you develop an innovation like this, it helps even the employers, the labor market, to have a sense of security that the graduates that institutions produce are the graduates that carry the skills that they claim they carry. And for me, your contribution is in the absorption of our graduates into the labor market indirectly, because that has a direct impact on the ability to find or retain employment for our graduates. And then the other one, the Zulu Python. When you showed me this, I was filled with excitement, because for me, teaching and learning should be close to the context of the environment that learners are coming from. So writing a code in isiZulu, for me, it's a deep revelation, and it's a deep innovation that, as Dr. Ade-Ibijola mentioned, we hope that it is a prototype that many other translations into other languages will be formed from it. I think the question then is, can 4IR and decolonization coexist? And I think you have answered that question for us very well, so we commend you for that. The innovation itself has a potential to ensure that access to higher education comes with success, because if students can learn these things, if you can take a student and put them in a computer science qualification using their own language, you have already dealt with a number of issues that could have been challenges. Just the comfort that they are being taught in fact, they can write a code in their home language gives them a psychological advantage to do better. And we must not forget, Prof. Jide here, that at the heart of the roads must fall, fees must fall protests that we saw in the higher education space, decolonization was at the center. And we don't want a situation where there's version 2 of those protests. So these innovations that you've come up with, I believe they assist to address those gaps that were identified by students. And indeed, we'll be able to move forward. And I'm sure there will be an appreciation from the student body to say that their cries have been taken into account in moving forward the academic project. On the overall, I think your interaction or involvement of students already tells us that those students carry the digital skills that are needed by the economy. So already their employment potential is highly boosted. I would like to end it there, Prof, and congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you very much, Professor Lungile and Ntsalaze. I know you're quite busy, and thank you for finding the time to be here as well. You and I, we started being a colleague in a close space a couple of months ago, which is the JBS. And then I've always enjoyed your mind and how you think, and also the heart, part of the game, like Prof. Maria said before. The art is the part of the game that you don't teach it in school. You don't teach caring in school. You can go to school, be the professor of rocket science, come out, you don't care, you don't care. So Prof, you've been that person that always, your leadership style has always been about caring, like how can we help? And that's where we both connect. Thank you very much. If I can recap your talk, first you started with the proctoring system because you were worried about you were concerned about the quality of graduates we're going to produce if they were all copying at home. Prof, that thing kept me up at night. In fact, in my head, I thought a day would come where people say, are you pre-COVID graduates or post-COVID graduates? You're pre-COVID, oh, I'll hire you. Post-COVID, oh, sorry, I cannot hire you. Because those distinctions started rolling in. We saw those marks. They were unbelievable marks. And the students that I spoke to didn't even lie about it. They said, sir, we Googled this thing and put marks there. So practice system was important. You mentioned that for that reason. You mentioned skills and being a graduate with skill sets, digital skill sets specifically. You were specific on that one. You pinpointed Zulu Python as well, and you share the same sentiment as Dr. Odwayo. Then you said that if these graduates already have the skills, then their prospects of getting jobs is already very high. And that means that job creation means unemployment disappears one person at a time. And yeah, those sentiments are shared by myself as well. Thank you very much, Prof. Lungile, for those inputs. Colleagues, thank you very much. Our panelists have had their inputs. Professor Otto, I would leave it to you to look at maybe the Q&As and see where we can jump in. To the panelists are here to answer any questions that our colleagues there might be asking, and I think Otto also have been tracking the questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ade. Thank you for a very exciting presentation. And then from our academics, from you, Jay, thank you very much for those insights. It's a very innovative area. It's an open case. Let us have some contributions from the audience. I think Steve, you're ready to make a contribution, Steve? Steve is also with JBS.
Yes, he's a professor of practice with us at the JBS.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my question. My name is Professor Stephen Sidley. I'm the new kid on the block, having just received my appointment letter from HR, I think yesterday. So I'm in the birthing room over here as a professor of practice at the university. So this is the first event that I've attended, this lecture, and I must say I was struck speechless by the amount of innovation. The comment that I put on here, this is just a tsunami of creativity. And I want to echo what Professor Lungile said about it's very easy at a high level to come up with 4IR strategies and 4IR policies and 4IR commissions. It's an entirely different matter, as we know from South Africa, is to take those good words and bring them down to tactics. And what was particularly pleasing for me was that some of the applications that you've developed, Professor, some of them are very, very small. Some of them are much larger, but some of them are very, very small. And it's that sort of tactician approach where you take things down to the level at which they're appropriate, which is terrifically exciting for me. But that's just my preamble comment. My question is specifically, how many of these ideas came from students, and was it students who did the tech implementation of these tools?
Professor Ade and Tim can respond to the question from Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Steve, for that question. The nature of innovation is that when people sit in a room like we are here, we start talking stuff right now. Prof. Lungile is going to say something that triggers me. I'm going to say something that triggers Prof. Otto. And before you know it, something comes out of it. So when it comes to all of the students that are part of this are the students that I'm mentoring. Let me first be clear about that. I taught them programming from first year, all of them. They have that in common as well, except for my PhD students that joined. For my postgraduate students, all of the topics always come from me, but it's their hands. So it's the job as academics that we do. It's always like our big mind behind it. But then it's the skills transfer that's the most fascinating part, where when they are stuck with the lines of code, we tell them, bring the laptop, let me show you. So it's the let me show you culture that's groomed all the students into this space. And over the years as well, the students have now evolved. So they also come back to me with things that I've not seen to say to me, Prof, you know, I came across this, I'm like, oh, okay, really? What can this do? And then we explore it together. So with ideas for each of the projects, I might get to be able to remind you and tell you who it actually came from, but we like to go with a team, big podium, big cake kind of philosophy so that nobody is kind of stuck on their idea. If it's our team, if it's us, we did it together. If it's someone's PhD or master's, we did support them to write lines of codes for them, put them on a podium to graduate when it's time. And then, yeah, Prof, it's always been that collaborative and kind of togetherness kind of vibe. It's a community of brainstorming. So, and our students deserve all the credits because they're the boots on the ground after all has been said and done. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
There's a question from Lebo. Lebo asks,
Yeah.
she raised it just now. What is the function of Zulu Python?
Good, thank you, Lebo. So Lebo, computers computers like you use them on your phone and your laptop. You have computers all around you, ATM machines and all of that. But then we need to talk to them. We have always wanted to talk to computers, and the only way to do that today, to tell them what to do, is to write a sequence of lines. We call them code. And those codes are underlaid by some technique that we call algorithms. But because we evolved from a colonial kind of era into the knowledge that we have our indigenous knowledge and we have the knowledge that's adopted from colonial masters. So we've always written these lines of code in English or in some language that you might go to. If you go to China, it's in Chinese or Mandarin and all of those languages. So Zulu Python allows you to actually talk to a computer in isiZulu. That is the simplest way to explain it. So imagine someone who is never even cannot speak English. They cannot type English. They cannot correctly spell an English word, but they are a Zulu person that understands their language very well. They can spell, they can speak, they can write in Zulu. So that person now has a chance of actually writing code and speaking to a computer. That is the very simple way of explaining this. Lebo?
I think he's satisfied with your response.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing that came out last week was the danger of a digital divide. As we advance into the metaphors, as we advance into the fourth industrial revolution, there's a danger that the poor become poorer in terms of education and the rich become richer in terms of education. Can our panelists address this dilemma of the potential digital divide that comes with the fourth industrial revolution?
I think let's go to Dr. Kibbie first for that. I would like to know what she thinks about that. Just because, yeah, she philosophizes these topics. Prof, Dr. Kibbie, you're muted.
Thanks, Jide, and thanks to the panelists. I mean, I've actually learned so much from everybody today, and thank you. And I think one of the things that Prof. Maria was talking about was, you know, in the games that Prof. Jide's developed with her, was explicitly to address that digital divide. And I think that, you know, that we have to be mindful of that. You know, that our students come from very diverse backgrounds and that many of them may not have access to the technology. And I think that's one of the things that we're quite good at UJ, particularly, is understanding exactly who our students are, where they come from, and addressing the fact that from the outset, from the time they first come into university, addressing the need to develop their skills and their familiarity with technology. But having said that, I think that as lecturers in higher education, we have to be constantly mindful of that digital divide, of the fact that students don't always have the skills. And I think, that's where things like the Zulu Python and also speak to each other, because you acknowledging that students may not come with the technological skills that are necessary, but they are bringing in other skills and other ways of knowing and ways of doing and ways of being. And as lecturers, part of our role is also to meet students where they are at and learning about where they come from. And we've been doing a lot of that kind of work as well, which goes hand in hand with the importance of technology and using technology to also acknowledge and see what students come into the university with. I'm not sure if I'm answering the questions, but directly, but I think that we do need to address it very explicitly, because if we don't, we are going to leave a lot of students behind. And I don't think that's what the role of university is.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kibbie. I see Prof. Maria switched on a cam when you are winding down, so I assume she's got her hands on the trigger. She's a philosopher herself. So, Prof. Maria, you want to jump in?
Thanks so much. I'm not so sure about being a philosopher, but I do think one of the things with the digital divide is also to think about the digital divide amongst our academic staff. So one of the things that Prof. Jide and my team in the library will be doing going forward is also to help academics think about how to use these innovations in their teaching. And part of this picks up on one of the things that Prof. Jide was talking about at the end of his talk. One of the roles of the academics at the university who are teaching young people is to think about what innovations will help them. And then we have teams of people at UJ that can help us with the technology. But part of it is that our academics need to be thinking about what do the students need? What do academics need in support for their research? Almost, I sometimes feel with Prof. Jide's team, is if you can dream it, they can do it. You just need to dream it. So for me, the digital divide is also helping the academics to learn how to use these technologies so that they assist students not to fall behind, but also to encourage academics to dream and to think about new applications that will help us to support our students better.
Now, today we're talking about tools. What do we need to do to link tools to content? Because you talk about the needs of the students, the needs of the academics, there's also the needs of the industry. There's a problem of what we call disintermediation or cutting off the university, making the university irrelevant. For example, the company by Tony Blair's son called Multiverse. What they do is they take young people, candidates, and they give them the skills that industry is looking for. So they're linking the candidate with the industry minus the university. In other words, they're disintermediating the university because the argument is the content of the university is not good enough for industry. So what can we do to link the tools we've described today to content, which is desirable to industry, desirable to business, desirable to our communities and society?
Professor Lungile, you want to jump in?
Yes, thank you. There is another question now that Prof. Mutambara has posed. I just wanted to quickly touch on the digital divide. And my comments around that before I come to the second question is that the issue of connectivity is a problem for many in the country. But I do believe that once one has access to university, they are in a better space than someone who may be looking for educational opportunities while they are at home in rural areas. And in that regard, I think there's some movement that is happening, in fact, within the public sector, our government, where there's been an opening in terms of the auction of spectrum. And I've seen a number of telecommunication companies buying spectrum, which comes with a promise of advancing the connectivity across the country. So I think that would be one of the things that assist. However, the issues of finances still will be a major issue that I think would still block people from interacting with these digital tools. So it's a question that needs to be monitored continuously so that there's awareness created not to leave anyone behind as we push frontiers in terms of digital technologies. And then in terms of keeping or preserving the relevance of higher education institutions, I think universities, over and above content, they provide a process of gaining that content and the way of assessing which still is considered rigorous. And in that aspect, I think engaged scholarship is one aspect that needs to be promoted here. I'm happy that our professor of practice is here, Professor Steve, because the idea that we are moving with at the JBS is that those that are leaders in industry assist to influence what is being taught at universities to maintain relevance of the products at university. So the professors of practice and having our own staff members being involved in industry activities, being involved in government work, assist to make sure that it's not about producing for the sake of producing, but it's about producing graduates with relevant skills. So I think that interaction will need to be maintained and even strengthened to make sure that the benefits of going through a higher education institution are preserved, but there's an add-on in terms of improved relevance for industry. Thank you.
Let's have more colleagues speak on the two issues, the digital divide and linking tools to content and the issue of disintermediation. More views maybe from the panel?
Yeah. Prof, if I can just drop something to, I don't know what Prof. Lungile said about this, the disconnect, trying to eliminate the university. In my experience in technology, I've tried to learn things by myself on YouTube. As you might have guessed how that went. I did not know which video was lesson 1 and which video was lesson 2. In fact, after watching 3 videos, I realized that 75% of the content were replicated in those videos. And the guy who was trying to show me was not even an expert in what he was trying to show me. Plus, the guy then uses a platform, a laptop that is different from mine. Something just goes wrong. But when I'm in a classroom with an academic, a PhD holder in something, and a good teacher, okay, I must put that clause. Sometimes we're not fortunate. And a good teacher. There's something I feel when I go and I look at that learning guide and says to me, we're going to learn this first, then we move to this, at this point, I'm going to test you. Then after that, we go that. So I think structure is one thing university offers. And it's open for debates, but in the industry, there might be a tender, and you might be just asked to do something now just so that you're qualified at that moment, and 2 years after things shift, you move that way. At the end of the day, you're not a master of a particular thing. And I've been in industry many times. I've been in consulting as well. I've never actually switched off from the industry. But one thing I appreciate about academia the most is just the structure, the way you go through content from one content to another, and you become a master of something. Not everything. So colleagues, I just like to to put that in. Yes, I think it's open for other colleagues to add to it.
Bhaso here.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's much for me to add, actually. I think the points that colleagues have raised, I think are quite spot on. I think for me, this is not necessarily the issues of digital divide, but also the disconnect between industry and business. I think it's not for universities to solve on their own. I think they are policy problems. I think there are problems around data costs, being the country with one of the most expensive data costs due to some policy issues, issues of access to spectrum, which have also been held up in litigation until recently. But I think there are some, certainly with AI, I think the work that's being done here, that's been showcased here, shows that actually the barriers to entry in some ways are relatively lower when it comes to AI. I think there are opportunities for annotation, for example, where you don't need to be, to be highly educated. You are literally labeling the world, and in that way can be able to find opportunity and upskill yourself. I think there's also something to be said about onboarding these tools on zero-rated websites, which is again something to be discussed with some input from the internet service providers. But I think Blackboard is a particularly great tool so that there is wider access. And I also think one thing we didn't touch on, Prof. Chile, is whether you are protecting these inventions, whether you are stamping your intellectual property so that you have the IP, these exclusive IP to these tools in a way that is trademarked, but also patented. And you can then be able to have graded access so that you can be able to give access to people based on income, based on conditions as you scale them up for wider and wider dissemination out there. And then the issues of, I think, in the disconnect between industry and universities, I think Prof. Ntsalaze hit the nail on the head. I had on my notes here, when you talk about professors of practice, I think they are proving to be a very, very important catalyst for refreshing curriculum and keeping it industry relevant and making it industry relevant on some of those emerging industries. And I also think then we can also talk about strengthening our offices of technology transfer as universities so that these great inventions don't just end up in the lab, but also are able to hit the market, and universities can increase their commercial appeal while also retaining those great things that make them so special and unique. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Bhaso. I think I will respond to the issue of protection. Yes, we work. I've always been working with the TTO. Some things when they come out as research papers already, because that's the nature of science and research, you need to write about an innovation, and then colleagues get to cite the work. So the paper itself is a copyright, so you remain the author of the paper. The actual lines of code, the tools that they lie on our laptops, and like you said, UJ has a new unit, it's relatively new, called the UJ Invent. I'm not sure if you know about it. Under Harat, I've been working with Harat, with Prof. Maria as well, to commercialize some of our video games, to extend them to other universities and make the IP, commercialize the IP. So yeah, thank you very much for that concern. Absolutely. When we think of things like this, we want to quickly protect it. So it's a valid topic. I think Dr. Tapiwa had his hand raised. Dr. Tapiwa, are you there? I think you wanted to ask a question.
I would like to thank Professor Ade-Ibijola, the presenter, and the panelists. My question is forward-looking. I know we are, here at under the auspices of the Institute for the Future of Knowledge. These exciting innovations that you have shared, Python in Zulu, how we are looking to use AI and innovations for digital transformation. How do we future-proof them? How do we make sure that they can still be relevant and applicable to Africa's needs 10, 15, 20 years from now? What is it that we can do to tap into, the potential that is already there in the students who are, almost semi-digital nowadays, in that they've never known a life without a smartphone, for example, or without a laptop?
Professor, do you want to jump in?
I'll take a step with just one general point. When you start talking about 10 to 15 years in technology, you get into trouble. Why? Because if we go back 15 years ago, no one 15 years ago could predict any of the jobs we're talking about now, any of the technologies, Twitter, Facebook. You could not predict this 15 years ago. In the same way, it would be very difficult for you to predict what technologies, what jobs will be existing 15 years from now. So I want just to caution before the audience comes in to say, in technology, 10 years, 5 years is a very long period of time, and predicting how useful a tool is going to be in 10 years' time could be quite a stretch, because some of the jobs that will be existing 15 years from now don't exist right now, and you can't predict them. In the same way, you couldn't predict the current jobs 15 years ago. But I'll stop there and allow the panel to come in.
I think Kibbie has her hands on the trigger. Her camera is on.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that you're absolutely right, Prof, because we really cannot predict problems of the future. But what we can do, and what we ought to be doing, is preparing our students so that they have the knowledge and skills to actually solve those problems of the future and develop the technologies that we're going to be needing in the future. So, and I think that's where that's the role that we have to play at universities. And we can't do that alone, as we've been saying. We have to do that in partnership with industry, with civil society, and communities, because and that process, so universities have a role to play in ensuring that there is that dialogue, that we engage in dialogue and we constantly keep those channels opening. And I think that the kinds of things that Jide is actually demonstrating today actually show us that as well. And key, I mean, one of the things I do want to point out is that I've engaged with some of Prof. Jide's students and with some of the other students being developed across the university. That the key to developing students who can solve these future problems as well is to develop the whole student, and I think that that's really important, so you've got students that don't just have the knowledge, but they have the ability to think critically about how to use it, but they also have the respect and the ability to engage and have the attributes that are necessary to engage professionally. And I think that's quite important as well.
So we are saying it's important that we teach our students how to learn, teach them how to think, teach them how to solve problems. Those 3 skills, for example, will be powerful and important 20 years, 30 years from now. Learning how to learn, mastering how to think, and solving problems.
I couldn't have said it better.
If I can also jump in, I think one thing that Dr. Kibbie was also pointing out there was the discipline and the rigor that she experienced when she dealt with my students. Because don't forget, we're contesting with social media attention when you deal with a young person in the year 2022. They were probably born in the year 2002 and all they know is internet. And to get them to even concentrate on a particular task for a long time, it's like a great ask. So you need to, first of all, kind of put them in a regimented shape, something almost like military kind of design. And I have a whole talk on that. Colleagues, when I yield the mic now, I'll probably share the talk on the chat window in case anybody's interested. And I think there is no better way than to first get people in the right state of mind before you put content in there. Because if you put content in someone who's all over the place, it's a waste of effort. And I've seen that in my teaching experience, where you try to teach young people how to do something well, they're not even focusing, they're giving excuses, they're not showing up, and everything is just a mess. Yes, I yield.
Few more views from the panel on the question from Dr. Tapiwa Gande.
Bhaso here, nothing from my side. I think it's been answered quite well by Dr. Naidoo and Prof. Jide.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions across the panel between the panelists?
Yes, I think I would like to ask, since I have two specialized accountants in the house, Professor Lungile Ntsalaze and Dr. Ade-Ibijola, what does this, look at your professions. So I want to know, in your professions, accounting, for example, and Prof. Dr. Bhaso has actually gone ahead and showed us how he incorporates FOIA in his field. He does it already. Prof. Lungile, how technologically transformed, and Dr. Ade-Ibijola, this is also going to you, is your profession future fit as accountants? Because there are many things you do on Microsoft Excel that we cannot automate. So I want to know, don't put out your dirty laundries, but I just want to ask, on the record, Prof, is this something that accounting profession within the context of Africa is looking at, Prof?
Thank you, Prof. I think at this stage, we are seeing a lot of development of short learning programs dedicated for accountants. And I think UJ is one of the leading institutions in terms of that. So in terms of the incorporation of 4IR technologies in the teaching environment, I think it's still at an infancy stage. In practice, big firms have been able to deploy these technologies in their work, in the work of auditing. Big companies auditing corporations. Some of them, I happen to read about the Australian firms and also in the US, where some are deploying drones to assist with stock counts in warehouses and robots as well, but mainly in the auditing field, there's talk of blockchain as a way to validate transactions, which eliminates a need for people to be asking for bank confirmation, for instance, or for people to be doing accounts reconciliations where there is a technology that can do that. Yeah, so those are some of the technologies that have been implemented, but I must say that in a South African situation, higher education, I think there's a lot to do to make sure that technologies is included in the curriculum. There is also a lot in the financial services sector, where you've also had experience, Prof. Jide, in the financial markets. A lot of machine learning, AI techniques are being used there, which is part of what we go through in the training as accountants. Thank you. Dr. Ade-Ibijola, I'm sure would be able to add more to this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. You've actually said it all. We are prepared for technology because I believe technology cannot replace everything we do. We deal with a lot of data. We deal with a lot of transactions that at least we need humans to validate the use of those technology. And we are embracing the technology already because we use machine learning and all those tools now to process some of our data and our transactions. So we could still see that in our profession, the role of human beings to engage these technological tools is still very much important. And we are embracing it. We are technologically inclined now. And we know that before you press calculators to hard, now it's even advancing from Excel to using machine learning. So we are ready for it, but I still believe that the role of human being, the accountant, our roles are still there to ensure that we validate what these technologies can do for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dwanyo. Prof. Otto?
Yeah, I think we're coming to the end now. Just a last question from me. The future is not South Africa. The future is SADC. The future is not South Africa. The future is Africa. What are we doing to ensure that the great tools we've discussed today are shared across the continent? Because the future belongs to us working together as 1.4 billion Africans. South Africa is too small to be consequential under the fourth industrial revolution. That's my last parting question, and I hand over to Ade and your team.
Yes, Prof, thank you very much for that question. It's almost like you're reading my mind. I think you're a time traveler, Prof. You've been on the 15th of June, you traveled back in time to 13th to ask me this question. So I have a social project going live on the 15th of June. And in this project, I've shared it on Instagram, but I've not with my students where they live in the cloud. But I've not shared it on LinkedIn or any other medium yet. I call it Grit Lab Africa, which is, I have a plan, which I have industry and government guys behind me. They're saying, Jide, let's go for it, to teach millions of Africans how to code for free. Now, this is where this is different. Solar modules, panels on their roofs in rural areas with laptops in their hands is going to be included because those guys will then pay for it. Then I give them all of the mind, the brain part, the coding part. And I've done this thing for many years, so and I have results to show. So it means that those people getting taught as well, they are mainstream, because when they're learning from YouTube, they're just craftsmen, you know. But when they're learning from a main source, they can get some validation of some sort. Either in my personal capacity, or we can even enroll them for SLP if we decide to make it a UG affair. But then in my personal capacity, as a social project, just think of it like me going to a township giving food out. That's what I'm doing. Just that in this case, I'm giving lines of code and how to create them. So, Prof, I hear you. It's always, that question keeps me up at night to say, if tomorrow ever comes and like my colleagues always say, what if you get hit by a bus or a truck? Does it mean everything I know, a Black child on this continent who does not get to have access to that knowledge? So we are working effortlessly with a lot of effort at the back, Prof. We want to make sure that every Black child have access to at least what we have access to. The mind, the knowledge, also the networks, because sometimes the networks also play a huge role, especially when a child shows up not dressed well and they talk with strong accents and they are judged based on that. Nobody looks at their mind. So Prof, these are very deep topics for us. We investigating them every day.
Thank you. Any more comments? And then we can close the session. Any more comments from the panel? Lungile, you are muted.
Oh, sorry,
Thank
Prof.
you, thank you, thank you.
I wanted to say that to be at UJ, for me, it's being in an environment where this is encouraged. In fact, the university has a strategy for increasing footprint towards Africa. we have an internationalization office. So if it does not happen through formal qualifications, there are other avenues that I think would be available for the university to expand and increase collaboration with the rest of Africa. So I think in that sense, perhaps there could be more metrics to measure that as a KPI so that the integration is monitored. It's not just us talking. Thank you.
Professor Naidoo, Professor Bhaso, and then parting shots.
So I think it's been touched on. Basically, we need economies of scale for these inventions, these very, very useful tools to find broader usage and indeed to bring commercial success. I think we should be shameless about that. I think people might consider it crass, but for sustainability purposes, for developmental purposes, we need to think about commercial exploitation of these very useful tools. And here I like the work of I think Larry Diamond and Guns, Gems and Steel about the importance of scaling things. It's not just that a market exists, but you create a market. That's the essence of that book of hundreds of thousands of years of human history. It's not that tools are invented to solve particular problems, but markets are created for particular tools. When I survey the continent, though, I note a lot of private efforts by individuals, by groups, by associations. There's a gaming association, for example, that was formed last year, a Pan-African Gaming Association involving about 10 national gaming associations. I also notice institutional efforts such as by the African Union and by the African Academy of Sciences to regulate and to promulgate guidelines on data, on data collection, data usage, and as well as an AU digital transformation strategy. Where I don't see much enthusiasm is at the state level in terms of the various countries that populate the continent individually as well as collectively. And here I'm quite aware that efforts at the AU level are indicative of the efforts of the mandarins, of the policy thinkers at the AU level, not necessarily indicative of sort of bottom-up efforts by member states. To take just one example, the trade war, for example, between China and the US presented a huge opportunity in the digital sphere when America was basically now saying Huawei is no longer going to have access to Android, the user interface, and by extension, Google. And one of the things that we did, my team and I, was to get the ear of lawmakers, of parliamentarians, to actually point out the huge opportunity that this presented for basically renegotiated terms of digital engagement, where Africans would be writing the software for this huge mobile phone vendor that was now without an operating system. There should at least be some African inputs over there. That's what the UAE did. That's what India did. So I think there needs to be a bit of a shift at the policymaking level. The success of technologies is not sort of written in the stars. There's a lot of behind the scenes that needs to take place. I mean, Google, for example, on my iPhone right now is the default search engine because Apple paid Alphabet to make it so. Same in China, Baidu is the most popular search engine because the inventors of Baidu went to every internet cafe that they could locate to negotiate that their search engine be the landing page. So all this to say that the efforts of of colleagues such as Prof. Jide and his team and others across the spectrum need, I think, also policy support. And that's not been as forthcoming as it should be. So thank you very much.
Okay, over to you, Professor Ade, to conclude the meeting. Your concluding remarks, Professor.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Arthur Mutambara. And thank you, colleagues. In absentia, some of our colleagues had to leave. I understand, because these are like family time of the day. Thank you very much for that last comment, Dr. Bhaso. Policy, what you just said is that policy needs to support all of this effort. Otherwise, you just try to open doors that are locked, because that's the role of policy. Many thanks to Anthony. Many thanks to our panel. Prof. Maria, Professor Lungile, Ntsalaze, Dr. Kibbie Naidoo in absentia now, she had to leave. And Dr. Olariwaju as well, she had to leave. Thank you, colleagues. This discussion, in the words of Professor Arthur, these discussions don't end. It's not something you talk one time and it finishes. So please watch this space. We have another seminar next week. And you would see, please join same time. And there we would take this further to the next phase of the seminar. Prof. Arthur, thank you for this initiative. It's been lovely collaborating with you and having our colleagues in here and also our guests in here. Guests, thank you very much. Prof. Arthur, over to you to draw the meeting to a close.
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting is done. Our next meeting is next Monday, same time. Then on the 22nd of June, we have another big one with a professor from MIT on the work of the future. So see you next week on the 20th and also on the 22nd of June. Thank you so very much.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.